Imagine a library in the heart of the Sahara filled with ancient manuscripts on astronomy, medicine, philosophy, mathematics, and law. A place where scholars traveled across continents to learn, debate, and share ideas. That place existed not in Greece or Rome, but in Timbuktu, Mali, in the 14th century. Today, we're going on a journey into Africa's intellectual legacy, a history too often ignored or erased. This is a story of wisdom, books, and the brilliance of African minds. Let's begin in Timbuktu, a city founded in the 12th century on the edge of the Sahara Desert. By the 14th and 15th centuries, it had become one of the world's leading centers of learning, thanks to the prosperity of the Mali Empire under rulers like Musa, one of the richest men in human history. Musa's legendary pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324 wasn't just about faith. It was about making Mali known to the Islamic world. On his return, he brought with him architects, scholars, and lots of books. He funded the construction of Sankoré Mosque, which evolved into the Sankoré University. But make no mistake, this wasn't a European-style institution. It was a decentralized university system rooted in African and Islamic traditions. Thousands of students studied under individual scholars in open courtyards. They spent years mastering grammar, logic, theology, mathematics, law, medicine, and astronomy. At its peak, Sankoré University housed up to 25,000 students in a city of about 100,000 people. That's equivalent to 1 out of every 4 people being involved in scholarship. Now let's talk about the manuscripts, arguably the greatest intellectual treasure of medieval Africa. Over 700,000 ancient manuscripts have been discovered in Mali, many hidden in family libraries or buried underground during colonial times to protect them. These texts are written in Arabic and local African languages like Songhai and Tamashek, covering topics far beyond religion. You'll find books on geometry, medicine, pharmacology, music, agriculture, ethics, and even astronomy charts. For example, Timbuktu astronomers tracked planetary movement long before telescopes. Doctors wrote about surgery and herbal treatments centuries before the rise of modern medicine. This was not rote memorization. Students were taught to question, argue, and interpret, much like the Socratic method, but rooted in African epistemology. And knowledge was portable. Scholars traveled between cities like Gao, Djenné, Agadez, and Kano, exchanging texts and ideas in a vast intellectual network. While Timbuktu gets the spotlight, it wasn't alone. Across the continent, ancient African universities thrived. Al-Qarawiyyin in Fez, Morocco, founded in 859 CE by Fatima al-Fihri, a woman is widely regarded as the oldest continuously operating university in the world. It taught grammar, rhetoric, logic, medicine, astronomy, and theology. In Egypt, the Al-Azhar University, founded in 970 CE, became a global hub for Islamic and philosophical learning. In Ethiopia, the monasteries of Aksum and Lalibela preserved ancient Christian theological texts and trained scholars in the Ge'ez language and early Christian traditions. And don't forget the griots, West African oral historians who memorized and recited centuries of genealogies, moral stories, and history with incredible precision. In a largely oral society, griots were walking libraries, serving as advisors, peacekeepers, and educators. But what happened? Why don't we hear about these institutions today? The colonial period disrupted Africa's intellectual traditions in brutal ways. European powers labeled Africa as a continent without history, without writing, without civilization. Manuscripts were stolen, destroyed, or dismissed as unimportant. Colonial education systems taught Africans European history while silencing their own. In some cases, African scholars were forced to burn or bury ancient books to prevent their confiscation. Knowledge that once flowed freely across the Sahara was now severed by artificial borders, language suppression, and colonial propaganda. But history doesn't disappear. It waits, and today there's a powerful movement to reclaim and restore Africa's intellectual heritage. Organizations like the Ahmed Baba Institute in Timbuktu are digitizing ancient manuscripts. Scholars across Africa are rediscovering and translating texts, teaching them in schools, and reviving the old traditions of inquiry and debate. African universities, writers, and historians are working to decolonize education, replacing outdated Eurocentric narratives with local knowledge systems. Afrocentric thinkers like Cheikh Anta Diop, Molefi Asante, and Ngugi wa Thiong'o have challenged the West's monopoly on what counts as true knowledge. Even in popular culture, through Afrofuturism and African sci-fi, young Africans are blending ancient wisdom with futuristic visions, telling their own stories again. Africa was, and still is, a continent of scholars. Its libraries may not have always had marble columns or Latin names, but they held something far more powerful. Generations of wisdom rooted in land, language, and lived experience. The story of African universities and intellectual traditions reminds us that knowledge is not the property of one civilization. It grows wherever there are minds hungry to learn and communities willing to teach. So the next time someone asks about Africa's contribution to the world, tell them about Timbuktu. Tell them about Fatima al-Fihri, about Sankoré, about the 700,000 manuscripts. Tell them Africa didn't just survive, it taught.